Hi, welcome to Lights Camera Author. I'm Jim Juno, and this is where we talk with authors who write about show business or people in show business who write their life stories. And I have with me tonight a very special guest. Her name is Carol Connors, and you prefer Cece, don't you, Carol?
I do, and yes, I do. It's not my legal name though.
No, okay, but it's
That's much more complicated.
well, your family is from Poland, and
Yeah.
now I want to mention first you have a new book which has just come out. It's called Elvis, Rocky, and Me, and it's published by our friends at Bear Manor Media. And it just came out, I believe, on April 26th. So it's really well, I've read a little bit of it already. And it's really funny, and
Well,
really
Steve Bergman, who's such a great writer and has done so many things for rock and roll people, he is, all I know is I spent a lot of hours telling him about my life. And he's a wonderful writer and wanted to do this project, and it's worked out. I'm very excited.
fantastic. That is so
Amazon, I think
fantastic.
it's on Amazon, if I'm not mistaken.
Amazon.com is where you can find it. You can also find it at bearmanormedia.com. You can order it from there. So I urge you to go there or go to either one of those places and get the book.
Thank
Now,
you.
you started out at a very young age with a group which some of you may remember called the Teddy Bears, and it was in the 1950s. The song is "To Know Him Is to Love Him," and it was one of Phil Spector's songs, wasn't it?
Well, it was the first thing that Phil Spector ever did. Uh, uh, he wrote it for my voice. I was 16 and a half, going on 17, and he was dating my girlfriend, Donna. And so he would come to our school to pick her up because we were too young to drive. And I was either twiddling my thumbs, which I still do, or singing. And one day he said to me, I love your voice. I'm going to write a song for your voice. Do you have $10? And I went, Phil, I don't even have 10 cents. He said, because we were poor. And he said, well, if you can get together the $10, he said, I really will write that song and you'll be in our group. I said, okay. So I went to my mom and dad, and my father had been a jockey. So, they sort of live on the edge. And I'm 6'3". No, I'm not. I'm 5 feet tall. And I said, I need $10. And of course, my mother said, go do your homework. And my father, who had sort of lived on the edge, said, Gail, let's hear what she has to say. And I said, Daddy, if I get the $10, we're going to live in a mansion. You're going to drive a beautiful car. I'm going to buy you a racehorse. He said, stop there. Don't want the racehorse. I'm off the track. And they finally gave me the $10 because I was so obnoxious and I was so persistent and precocious and still am. and I went to Phil, gave him the $10, and we cut the flip side of To Know Him Is to Love Him. Dreadful song called Don't You Worry My Little Pet. Don't you worry my little pet. It's a horrible song. But my voice kept cutting through because I was the girl. And he said, I'm really going to write that song for your voice. So one day he calls me up about 2 weeks later, and he goes, to now. He had a terrible voice. Now. And I went, oh, he said, what do you think? I was doing my homework, of course. And I said, it's okay. He said, well, come garage band, come up tomorrow. We've got to rehearse it. We're going back in the studio to know him is to love him. And I went, well, how am I going to get there? And he said, take the bus. So I did.
Oh
And
my
we went to
gosh.
the studio, and I did it in 2 takes, 2-track machine, no splices, once for balance, once all the way through, 20 minutes, finished.
Know him is to love, love, love him.
you know who the drummer was? This will
No.
really knock you out. Little rocky term there. You know who the drummer was?
No. No. Tell me.
Sandy Nelson.
Stanley
Teen.
Nelson.
He did Teen Beat. He had a #1 record with a
Yeah.
song called Teen Beat. And it was the first thing that Sandy ever did. And Phil stood over him because he really, you could tell that he knew exactly what he wanted. He said, Sandy, I want you to go ba 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 ba. And that's, if you listen to Know Him Is to Love Him, that's the drum signature on it.
He also said, if you mess up my song, he was, he was, we can talk freely. Okay.
We were doing the Perry Como show because we had the #1 record, not only in the US, it was the #1 record in the world, actually, in France and England and Japan. So we're on the Perry Como show. And during rehearsal, because I was so young, I was like, by then I would have been like 17 and a half, you know what I mean? And I was so young, and my voice cracked during rehearsal because he wrote it so that I had to go to the highest note of my register, which is a D. It's the high note of the song. And he was so enraged that he put me up against the wall. I could laugh about it now. I wasn't laughing then. And he said, Annette, my real name, Annette, if you fuck up my song, I'm gonna kill you. I went, you
Oh
know?
no.
And that night, my mother said that on television, if you look at the clip from the Perry Como show, because it's all you can see it on YouTube, she said that right before I went for the high note, there was a look of terror that came over my face. But I hit it perfectly.
I
So what can I say?
I tell you what, yeah, and your dad was a jockey. See, and I can relate to that because my dad was a jockey too.
Was he a disc jockey, a real
No,
jockey?
no, a real jockey.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. He
Yeah.
raced thoroughbreds.
Yeah. My father did too. He rode Pimlico, Belmont,
Hmm.
back east because I'm from New Jersey. He
Right.
rode all the back east tracks. He rode the Cuba tracks. That's how many years ago it was. By the way, sort of something about speaking of fathers, um, Phil's father committed suicide. And on his father's epitaph, it said, to know him was to love him.
Oh.
And he turned it into a teenage lament when it was rhythm and blues, all the songs of Shaboom, and everything was, it was very rhythm and blues at that time. And Hunter Hancock, and he turned it into this lament. And when I went to sing the song, he said to me, as a producer will, because he was already a producer in his head, he said, sing it like you were singing it to your boyfriend. And I said, Phil, I'm like 16 and a half. I kept saying that to him. I don't have a boyfriend. And he said, then sing it like you were singing it to your father. And that's who I thought of when I sang.
See that? My dad also raced at Pimlico. He raced. I'm from Louisville, Kentucky, originally,
Oh my gosh, home of the thoroughbreds.
home of the Derby. I mean, it's like
That's
yes,
right.
yeah. He raced. He was a circuit rider, as they called him back then. When he would go start out in Florida, move up north as the weather got warmer. I imagine your father did much of the same thing.
I would think so. I have pictures of my dad, like when he won some of the races
Hmm.
and everything. I mean, he was very handsome, my father, but he was very small. I mean, he was like 5'1", and he didn't when he passed away, my father probably only weighed about 116, 118 pounds. And I think when he was racing, he was like, maybe 105 or something like that.
Hmm.
And he used to smoke 4 packs a day to keep his weight down, right? I'm sure your
Hmm.
father did the
Yeah.
same because it kills your taste buds.
Hmm.
And one day, my father, he was a Scorpio. I'm a Scorpio. And my father said, I don't want to do this anymore. And he put the Lucky Strikes down, and he never, ever smoked another cigarette again. That's okay. It's going to go to an answering machine. Never picked up another cigarette.
Wow.
And
See,
I'm really my father's daughter because I was up at Hefner's once with my boyfriend at the time, Robert Cole from I Spy. And
yeah.
he said, if you keep drinking those Pepsi Colas, because Hef would never have Coca Cola in the house, they had a big argument. He said, you're going to rot those beautiful teeth in your beautiful face. And I went, Robert, well, he was my love. So of course he's going to say that. I said, Robert, you're right. As he was drinking straight vodka and I put the Pepsi down, I've never picked up another soft drink.
Wow. It's like, see, that's I still have a Coke now and then. So I can't, you're better than I am, you know. But
They taste like battery fluid to me,
yeah, it does have that taste to it.
you
And
know. So
but now I'm straight coffee drinker. So, but
I love coffee.
yeah, and so now after that initial success, you didn't just fade away in the '60s. You write the song Little Cobra?
I'm the only girl in the history of rock and roll who ever wrote a hot rod song, and it became a major. Like it was number two and number one on one chart. But the Beatles came out then, and they took us on Billboard. I think we went to number two. We were on our way to number one, and they took the number one spot. It was the Ripcords,
Yeah.
and it was a bizarre story. I mean, because after To Know Him Is to Love Him, the group broke up. Phil went on to do, to become the great producer that he was. And I had a terrible car accident. I went off a cliff.
Mm.
I didn't mean to, but I did up on Coldwater and Mulholland. And I'm sorry, but it's going to an answering machine. Um, so I didn't have much of a nose on my face. I went off a 350-foot cliff and they had to rebuild part of my face. And this was many, many years ago. So it broke up the group. So years later, I'm with this boyfriend of mine and I cracked up his AC Bristol, which is, it's like a Cobra.
Mhm.
It's the same sort of body thing, except the Cobra had the 289 engine in it. And so he said,
You know your
there's this
cars,
guy
you really
here.
do.
What?
You know your cars, you really
Yeah,
do.
I really do. And so he said, there's this young guy named Carroll Shelby. Said, and he's building this weird car, but it's based on an AC English car called a Bristol. Go talk to him. So I went, To Know Him Is to Love Him was the key to many parts of my life. It really was. So I go to Carol's place and he took the meeting because he loved to know him is to love, love, love him. He loved the song. So he took the meeting and I walked in and I said, Mr. Shelby, I had on a little crop top and little hip huggers. And I said, batted my eyes, being a Scorpio. And I said, Mr. Shelby, I just cracked up my friend's car. Can you put a Cobra front on a Bristol back? And he went, I can't do that, little girl. He said, but if you write a song about my car and it becomes a big hit, I'll give you one and I'll take you to Le Mans. Never thinking I would do it. Ooh la la, I went to Le Mans the year before Ford won first, second, and third. If you look at Ford versus Ferrari, the film, and I had two Cobras.
What, you had
My
two
car today
Cobras?
is
Wow.
worth $1,500,000 today, and I don't own it. And don't ask the questions why. I'll have to murder my brother and be in an orange jumpsuit. Okay.
So now that she's opened the door, what happened? No.
What? I'm not going to go into that. But I had a beautiful, I used to paint my Cobra. Whenever I would change my outfit, I would paint the car. George Barris, who was the very famous George Barris,
Yes.
did the Batmobile and all.
Batmobile and
He
Black
at
Beauty.
that
Yeah.
time yeah, at the starting, and he was always painting my car and putting lacquer on it, and like 900 coats of lacquer on it.
Oh man, I didn't realize this whole your whole life is just so interesting, and everybody out there, I think some of the younger people in the audience may know this song more than Little Cobra or to know him is to love him is. You wrote the theme to the Rocky movies.
I co-wrote it.
Co-wrote
Co-wrote it.
it.
I did.
Co-wrote it.
Bill Conti and Al Robbins. I did co-write it. Absolutely.
And were you responsible for the iconic trumpet beginning?
That was Bill. I was responsible for the Gonna Fly Now, the line.
Oh,
Um,
okay. Mhm.
which became it's called the theme from Rocky Gonna Fly Now. And actually I came up with it in the shower. We had seen the film. We came to my house. Bill Conti went, he went, did that on the piano, and I thought to myself, what is anybody going to write to that? They all left, and remember, we had seen a rough cut of the film. So I went into the shower. In those days, you could take your phone into the shower. It's not a cell phone; it was a landline.
Mm-hmm.
And sure enough, the whole film was going through my head, and life, and the song. And I called Bill Conti, and I said, Bill, I know what life's about. I know what the film's about. I know what the song's about. And he said, where are you? And I said, well, I'm in the shower. And he said, are you with somebody? I said, Bill, if I was with somebody, would I be calling you? I'm a Scorpio. And he said, Carol, do me a favor. Give me the line before you electrocute yourself. And the line was, gonna fly now. Because at that moment in time, when he climbed those steps, he could, and the music was so majestic. He could do anything. He could go the distance. He could win. And when he put his arms up, and John Avildsen, the director, put him in slow motion, he could even fly. And that's where the title came from.
Did Stallone approach you for a song? How does that work? I mean, how did that work?
Well, that one worked because we had the same agent, and there was a little film, $980,000 budgeted film. And our agent, Stan Melander, said, oh, why don't you guys go look at it? Maybe you can, they're looking for a theme song. That's how it, of
Really?
course, at Stallone that day, at the rough cut. And like if I were to throw you a punch, you wouldn't hear the punch. That comes later. You would see me punch you. I don't mean to punch you, JJ, but you know what I'm saying. So we're sitting in the screening room, and then after that was the montage when he was running and he hit the beef and he drank the yolks and it was coming up the sunrise and he was running and he went up the stairs. And as Guillermo del Toro, which is the Wunderkinder of the directors of the Oscars, said to me, Carol, in his mind, Rocky is the most perfect film ever done. That John Avildsen, every single what do you call? Every single moment of the film was a masterpiece. And he said nobody will ever come up with a montage of that theme that you guys came up with. It's just a one of a kind.
That is amazing.
And coming from Guillermo del Toro, I was very touched. He told me that last year.
Now you also have so many um, famous friends. I went to your website, and by the way, if you want to find her website, it's carolconnors.com. Connors
You
C O.
got to spell it correctly.
Right, you have to spell it correctly. It's Connors. Dot
Carol, Carol.
Connors.com. And you can find pictures of your friends, Frank Sinatra. Um, oh my gosh. I mean, I was looking at the other ones. I mean, it's like,
Well, my best friend is Barbie Benton,
yes.
and she was the love of Hugh Hefner's life. And Barbie and I have been scuba diving and hanging out many years. And Sinatra once said to me, and I've never forgotten it, he said to me, less is more. So when you write a song, You have to know that less is more. Don't clutter it up. You know
Mhm.
what I'm saying?
Right.
And
Don't
that was,
overproduce it.
I've never forgotten that line.
Don't overproduce it. Don't do
Right.
too much of it. Just and you have to feel the song.
Well, that's what, when you stop, if you listen to Know Him Is to Love Him, which I hope people will, and why it's, become so iconic. In fact, Martin Scorsese, another director, Killers of the Flower Moon, because I was at a thing with Barbie to meet Mr. Scorsese. And when he heard that I sang To Know Him Is to Love Him, he went nuts. He said, "Oh my God, oh my God, one of the greatest songs in rock and roll history." He really did say that. I mean, I have witnesses. And then when he met Barbie, he went, "Oh my God, oh my God, Barbie." We had a great time. He was very sweet to us. And, I vote in the Academy because I've been up for 2 Oscars. And the other one was I did the music and lyrics to Walt Disney's The Rescuers. And it was the highest grossing animated film of its time.
That's right. With the mice, as with the mice, right? With the
With the little mice.
yeah,
Bob
Ava.
Newhart was
And
Bernard, and Ava Gabor was Bianca.
that's right. I remember Ava
Geraldine
Gabor.
Page was the bad lady,
That's right.
Medusa.
She was.
Medusa.
What do you like doing more? Do you like writing songs or do you like singing the songs?
I love to write them because it's like when I wrote with you, I'm born again. Come bring me your softness. Da 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 da. I wrote that for my love affair with Robert Culp. I wanted him to feel that way about me, and he did. And I felt that way about him. So I was able to express my inner feelings, all my inner thoughts. And on that song, I almost feel, because it became a #1 record, I almost feel that God allowed me, and I'm not a religious fanatic, but I almost feel that God allowed me to plug into some socket in, some beautiful socket in the sky, because I wrote the song in 22 minutes, except for 2 words that took me 2 weeks to come up with. Can you believe that?
Wow.
But singing it, when I sing, I love that too, because I'm interpreting, like I have a documentary coming out,
Hmm.
also called Elvis, Rocky, and Me. And because the day that Elvis died, I came home to my piano, not this one at the time because I didn't live here at that time. And I sat down and I wrote the theme song for the film, which is called Elvis, Rocky, and Me. The theme song is You Loved My Night Away.
There it is. And
There it is. And I was able to take all my feelings of the love affair that I had with Elvis, because he was my first boyfriend, and put it down on paper. So nothing equals that. I mean, it's because it's coming from way down in not only your heart, but your soul. And then when I sang it, I sing it in the documentary, I'm able to go to that place of my feelings about Elvis, not of writing the song, but of the interpretation of what I wrote. So it's a double-edged sword. I mean, I love them both. I love doing both.
tell me how you met Elvis Presley.
Remember I said about the key? The
Hmm.
key to my life has been to know him is to love him. Well, I was talking to one of the producers of the documentary, Dahlia Heyman, and we were trying to figure out what's the thread of my life, basically. And it's to know him is to love him. Elvis fell in love with my voice in 1958. That's when he went into the army, was 58. And we had a record that was on the charts. It was the longest at #1 and the longest on the charts of that year. And he loved the sound of my voice. Same with Carol Shelby. So he always said to the Memphis Mafia, that's with the guys that were always around him, "I love her voice. I love the mirror. I love that girl's voice." So this sort of creepy guy came up to me at a market and he said, "Aren't you the girl that sang To Know Him Is to Love Him?" And I went, "Yeah." He said, "Well, Elvis would love to meet you." And I went, "Right, sure, yeah, of course." But being like my father, I gave him my phone number. We're talking like the 60s. I mean, he could have been a serial killer for all I knew, but I gave him my phone number. And about 2 weeks later, he called me and he said, "I've set it up so that you can meet Elvis. I'll come pick you up." And I'm going, uh, what if he is a serial killer? What if he does know Elvis? What? And you back and forth and back. I said, okay, similar to my dad living on the edge. Sure enough, I went to Elvis's. He was renting. They had just finished Viva Las Vegas, so it was 1964. He
Mhm.
was, living on Bellagio at the time in Bel Air. And I remember walking down these steps, and I'm standing there, and I felt like a little mouse. And there's this beautiful. I love cats. I have two Abyssinians. They're gorgeous. And if they go to my website, they can see my little kitties, Music and Star. And there at the other end of the room is this beautiful human being that has the movements of a cat. So fluid, so beautiful. And he came up to me, took his time, came up to me and he said, "So, why you name group Teddy Bears?" Because that was the name of our group, as you said. And I thought to myself, that really is Elvis Presley in front of me. And I didn't know what to say. And I said, "Just want to be your teddy bear." And that started our love affair.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I'm with him for 9.5 months. He said 2.5 years. It was 9.5 months. Didn't have a baby because I was too stupid. I didn't have a baby. But the bottom line is, I adored him. He adored me. He thought I was very funny. And at that time, I have a picture of Priscilla, whom I know, Priscilla and myself side by side. At that time, we did resemble each other. We both had very dark hair, and my eyes are green. I think hers are blue, but we really resembled each other. And I'll send you the picture just so you can have it. And you'll go, "Oh my God, they really," because Elvis always said that I resembled Priscilla. Now, he hadn't married her at the time. He had not married her, but I think she was one of the great love. Well, she was the great love of his life. And so was I asked him once, I said, "Are you in love with Anne Margaret?" And he wouldn't answer me.
Mm.
I always believed that he loved Anne Margaret too. I mean, he told me how much he cared about me, of course, but I'm talking about what I think were two of the great loves of his life.
That's
He was one of
amazing.
the great loves of mine, but he was my first boyfriend. I wasn't his first girlfriend.
Well, that's incredible though. I mean, that is so incredible. Now, Robert Culp, everybody knows from I Spy. I know him from The Greatest American Hero because,
Right, right.
you know, and of course Elvis Presley, Sylvester Stallone. And for those of
Never
you,
had an affair with Sylvester,
no,
never
no,
had an
I know,
affair with Sly.
I know,
He
but
was just a really good, I can imitate him. Hey, he'll kill.
but I was going to mention that the book, of course, is Elvis, Rocky, and Me. A documentary coming out is the same name, Elvis, Rocky, and Me. And the book is available now on Amazon.com and BearManorMedia.com. Go to Cece's website, Carol, Carol, Connors, Connors.com, and you can find all the pictures, and you can even find some portraits that were done by friends of yours, which
And
you
my
as
two
a
kitty cats.
and your two cats, yes, indeed. Carol, I really want to thank you for being on Lights Camera Author tonight.
I love your title, by the way, Lights, Camera, Author. It's fabulous. And just remember, you and I and Barbie and Hugh Hefner, we all share double initials.
That's right.
BBCCHHJJ.
That is true. Yes, indeed. They used to, and then, well, I'll tell you that after the interview. But again, thanks for being on Lights Camera Author. I really appreciate it.
I love doing it. Thank you. And thank you for listening to all my stories.
Loved it. Let's see. Let me go ahead and hit stop. Let's